obviously watched hentai as a child.
Right.
Hi everyone.
Last year we sat down when we were finally back together and talked about The Force Awakens because that happened last December. And now we're again together. And it's a year later.
And there's another Star Wars movie that came out in December.
That's what we're going to talk about today, because this is going to be a thing, I guess.
This movie takes place right before A New Hope. It involves the team that secures the Death Star plans. And it is the first one that does not center around the ever-so-present Skywalker family.
Just a heads up, this video is probably going to be very heavy in spoilers.
Oh yeah.
So if you have not seen Rogue One, you don't want the spoilers yet, just, go watch our Force Awakens video. So we're just gonna jump into what I think is the most obvious thing that we would talk about in a video like this, which is of course the representation in Rogue One.
It is definitely the most diverse Star Wars film that we have to date.
So there was a man of color, and that's very specific, but there's a reason for that, in almost every scene. People like Diego Luna's beautiful face. Riz Ahmed's beautiful face.
Yes.
Donnie Yen, who's the most badass of them all. For real though.
Every time Donnie Yen had a scene where he fought someone, I found myself at the end
yeah.
Dang, that was cool.
Yeah.
Baze was also really, really cool.
Yeah, I found myself, especially the second time going to see it, I found myself really cheering for Baze and being on Baze's team, and also sitting there being like, Baze, take care of your husband, make sure he doesn't die.
I definitely noticed Baze's role more in the movie the second time.
Yeah, for sure.
Because Donnie Yen's character, Chiru Imwe, is the one who charges into battle. Baze is the one to come up behind him with his machine gun and be like, why did you run off?
Yeah, Baze is like Grumpy Cat. He's just no.
Lots of men of color, very racially diverse. Of course, that does not include Native American and indigenous people because they never get representation.
No. I mean, Chirrut is blind. He says it right out at one point.
I was afraid that they were gonna go the road of Toph, and don't get me wrong, Toph is a badass and she's amazing, but she has a superpower that is
to compensate.
That replaces the fact that she's disabled.
No, all Chirrut has is his faith in the Force.
It's implied that the way that the Force works seems to flow like energy, and it doesn't really manifest in a corporeal form for him. It's just something that he feels. That doesn't sound anything like sight.
Yeah.
And so it was very clear that he was a disabled character, and that was awesome. We're not physically disabled, so we can't really speak as to whether or not that fell into the magical disabled person trope. Let us know if it did for you.
I also wonder how people feel about Donnie Yen, who is not blind, playing a blind character, and I really don't feel like I have enough say in the matter because I'm not disabled or especially not blind. So if you have an answer, go ahead and leave it in the comments. Virtually no women of color. There's the one senator lady, the one black senator lady in the meeting.
Star Wars has a problem with women of color just not being there, and I want them to stop that. However, there were 2 women in this movie. There was Jyn and Mon Mothma.
Yep.
Mon Mothma didn't really even show up that much.
They don't call her Mon Mothma in the movie. They just talk to her.
So yeah, very few women, but super awesome on the racially diverse front.
Yeah.
Always room for improvement.
Yeah.
As it was said.
Speaking of room for improvement, we don't actually get LGBT representation in Star Wars movies. It's mostly just in kind of in your face subtext, the space husbands, Chirrut and Baze, who I think are devoted to each other just as much as they're devoted to the Kyber crystal.
Yeah.
Their relationship could easily be bought as space dads, but it's not necessarily given to us.
No.
We want to make that distinction.
There's obviously a great intimacy between the two of them. I don't want to brush aside the possibility that they could have been interpreted as romantically intimate, because I think that is totally viable. I also think that them being best friends intimate is totally possible, and I don't want to discount one or the other. I just want to say that because of the film, you can see it either way.
Yeah.
I personally would like to believe that they are space husbands.
Yeah, I think also, and we're gonna get to this a little bit later, but the fact that it is a war movie really doesn't lend itself to obvious romance. Not that it can't happen, but that because there's so much at stake within the galaxy,
it takes a backseat.
Yeah, it definitely does. I kind of really want to talk about the CGI cameos.
Yes.
Pros and cons of them.
I can't bring people back from the dead. It's not a pretty picture. I don't like doing it.
I liked the fact that they brought Tarkin back, specifically because he plays such a vital role in A New Hope.
Yes.
But I don't know if we needed so much of Tarkin, like, as much as we got of him.
There was a lot of Tarkin.
Mm-hmm. And he and Krennic have a lot of the same conversations more than once. It's mostly just, like, getting into Krennic's head, intimidating him, which I understand is, like, important for Krennic's role in the movie. We could have had one of those and then his conversation with Vader. And then my favorite CGI cameo, we get to the part where Vader shows up, and I was that emotional because I knew what was coming. And so I was just sitting there, like, grabbing onto my dad, almost crying, and then I did cry when you see, like, her back. I'm gonna cry now. I'm really emotional over this. Okay.
I will say that when you texted me and you were like, I cried at the end, I'm like, okay, well, it must have something to do with Leia. So I was not entirely surprised when she showed up.
Yeah. And, like, I know that it's, like, CGI Carrie Fisher, but it's...
that's her voice.
Yeah.
It's from archived footage.
Yeah. Which is just so cool. Oh my god. Movie making is just so far in advance.
When I watched it the first time, I was like, oh yeah, that looks a lot like Leia, and it's very convincing. The second time I watched it, I was like ready for the fact that she was there, and I did notice also that her eyes are also big, and they moved around just a little bit more, but like it was 5 seconds with her, so like it wasn't a big deal. The CGI cameos were super cool. We just could have used a little bit less of Tarkin.
Yeah, Tarkin felt a lot more like fan service than anything, because there was so much of it.
There was a lot of him. It was a very long movie. There were definitely some scenes we did not need.
Yeah.
I think the biggest one for me was that scene where, like, Bodhi is brought into Saw Gerrera, and he's just like...
with the tentacle thing?
That was ridiculous! The, like, tentacles grab him, and I'm like, there's something really weird about this. Like, somebody obviously watched hentai as a child.
Right?
Like...
I get where they're going with it, because, you know, they talk about...
how Saw is so paranoid.
He's paranoid and militant. And, like, when you get to that point in a rebellion, especially... you are very selective about who you give information to.
Yeah, and so, like, who you listen to.
Yeah, exactly. And especially if he says he's a defector of the Empire, you're not gonna trust that guy. Yeah. I get it. But I don't think that was necessarily the scene that we needed.
Saw makes a point to mention that the monster will extract the truth from him, okay? And he's like, it does have the side effect that you lose your mind. That was the thing that the scene ended with. Saw saying, you lose your mind.
Yeah.
But that never happened. It was solved very quickly. All Cassian had to do was remind him that he was a pilot, and he was like...
it's solved, but it doesn't, like, come full circle, because there's no real answer. It's just a thing that happens.
Essentially, it was pointless.
Yeah. And speaking of Bodhi, I am more than interested in a Bodhi movie, or a short, or something about Bodhi specifically.
I do think that Bodhi probably got the most background out of any of the other characters, besides Jin. Jin got the most background.
Yeah.
But... Bodhi actually, like, talked about why he defected, because of Galen. Obviously, that's very little, and I mean it when I say that he got the most background building from any other character besides Jin, because nobody else got their background really talked about.
I mean, we have, like, the very specific job title that
the throwaway have. Yeah, the throwaway lines of, like, we were guarding the temple, and then Cassian's like, I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old. Yeah. And I'm like, I want to know about 6-year-old Cassian.
We don't actually know why the temple needed guarding, besides the fact that, like, Kyber crystal is important, but, like, okay, but how much of it is there?
Yeah, but there
wasn't...
Why isn't
there just one temple?
I wanted to know more about that, and we didn't really get it as to, like, why there would be a temple to guard it. Maybe it's addressed in the prequels. I haven't seen the prequels in a long time.
I haven't either.
So maybe it's addressed there, but it's probably not. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say it's not. But... I mean, that's stuff that I would have liked to have known more about.
Yeah.
The Empire in Rogue One is entirely white. The only person that we meet who's a person of color who was part of the Empire is Bodhi.
And Bodhi wasn't a high-ranking person in the Empire. He didn't, like, have any sway in anything. He was a cargo pilot.
The fact that the rebellion is headed up by... mostly by people who are not white men, is a deliberate choice that has been made.
Mm-hmm.
It was nice to see that. It was nice that it was a very clear political message in that way. Mm-hmm. Even though there were so many people that were like, how dare you inject politics into Star Wars, even though Lucas based Emperor Palpatine off of Richard Nixon, and J.J. Abrams based Force Awakens off Nazi Germany.
Feminism is
like,
killing Star Wars.
how
just
dare you
killing
inject politics into this thing that has always had politics?
Yeah.
Jyn Erso is white brunette protagonist number 26, you know. In my initial reaction video that I made the same day that I saw Rogue One the first time, I mentioned that I could see why she was white. That is because the Empire is a white supremacist organization, and both of her parents were a part of it. And so it makes sense that she and her family is white because they work for a white supremacist organization.
This is one of those examples of the color of skin really actually meaning something and it needing to mean something, because otherwise, why would Jyn have to be white kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. However, one of our subscribers, Tia Nichelle, she left a very interesting idea about how cool it would have been for Jyn to be biracial, and how
And it would make a lot of sense if her mother
was a woman of color.
And she's, you know, living in the Empire. She would certainly want to get out of there.
Yeah, it would have added another kind of layer to her backstory.
Our theories, our suggestions are just that. They're just theories and suggestions, and you can agree with them or disagree with them, and that's totally fine. We're just really talking about opportunities that could have been taken to diversify even more. There was so much goddamn sexual tension in this movie between so many different characters, but especially Jyn and Cassian.
Oh my
God.
God.
They had bedroom eyes like every 2.5 minutes.
I know.
Very happy that it did not really culminate in anything. I did not need a kiss before they, you know, blew up. Like, that's not a thing.
I loved what they did. That was
where they just
so
like
beautiful.
hold each other.
Yeah. The moment after they send the plans up and they're riding down in the elevator together and the like light passes across their face is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in a movie. It was super hot, but it was also not like what I've come to expect from action movie romance, where it's very like, we don't know if the audience will pick up on the fact that these characters want a bone.
Yeah.
So we need to be super
fact
blunt.
That Jyn is not, she's not a sexual object.
No.
She's not sexualized whatsoever. She doesn't wear like leather at any point in the movie, like a full leather bodysuit to like hug all of her curves.
There was never a moment where I felt like something had been done to accentuate Jyn's body.
Yeah.
In a way that was sexual or objectifying.
Yeah.
Which was really cool.
Or even at the least bit like unnecessary for combat.
Yeah. Okay. Darth Vader. What a badass.
Darth Vader was simultaneously the most Anakin and the least Anakin in this movie ever.
It was amazing.
Yeah. The shadow that he cast behind Krennic
is so cool.
So, it's so cool and so full of meaning in that shot, because Krennic is like this big and the shadow is this big. It's just another way to reinforce this idea that Krennic is nothing in the grand scheme of things, which again just for me says we didn't need that extra conversation with Tarkin. We had the shadow.
Yeah.
That was good enough. That's good lighting, great filmmaking. James Earl Jones was back, so
yes,
you know,
that was great. I enjoyed Vader so much in this movie. When I heard that he was going to be in it and he showed up for a second in the trailer, the trailers, which were awful.
To be fair, even with the trailers, I was always going to see it because Diego Luna was in
me
it.
too.
So
when I saw him in the trailers, I was like, okay, whatever. And then we get him in the movie, and I love the scene where he chokes Krennic and he says, be careful not to choke on your aspirations.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that was the best thing that happened.
So Anakin,
It
so
was
extra.
When we're introduced to Vader, like right beforehand, someone comes in and is like, Krennic is here to see you or something, and we see him like in his weird little fish tank, and I thought that was very bizarre because immediately after that we get the very strong, powerful Vader. I mean, I thought that was weird, but it was also interesting. But then we get that scene at the end. I've never been frightened of Darth Vader as a character, like as an individual character. But now I have.
Yeah.
Oh, that scene was so cool. Like,
where you see nothing but the fog and then like his lightsaber just...
He's like fighting that one guy with the lightsaber, and then like he grabs one up with the force and slams him against the roof and then like brings him back down into somebody else. Like, my heart was pounding.
I mean, my heart was pounding, so I was like, Leia's coming, Leia's coming, Leia's coming.
If you've just seen it once and there were things that confused you, or like you didn't feel like you totally comprehended, go see it a second time. I didn't think that that would be such a big deal. I noticed that they did say their names. They were just words that I had just not recognized.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they all have bizarre names because it's space.
It's easy with the characters from The Force Awakens because they're all 3 or 4 letters. Finn, Poe, Rey. And then everybody else they're people you know.
Yeah.
But with this, it was like, not that they were like exotic and hard to understand because they didn't say, hi, I'm Chirrut. It's like, oh, Chirrut. But then if you don't catch it, you don't know what that is.
Yeah, if you felt overwhelmed the first time watching it, but you enjoyed it, I really highly recommend going and seeing it again because there were about 20,000 more things that I either comprehended fully or noticed now that I didn't have to worry about keeping track of everything that was going on.
Yeah. The movie is slow moving up until they go to find Galen, and even that scene is very slow.
Yeah.
It kind of drags. Definitely the best cinematography in any Star Wars movie ever.
It's breathtaking.
Oh yeah. First scene, I remember sitting there the first time, sitting there like, if I don't like anything else about this movie, it is gorgeous.
Yes. Rogue One is undoubtedly a war movie.
Oh yeah.
It's unlike any other Star Wars movie that they've made.
The very end of it, the fact that we lose all these characters that we're emotionally attached to doesn't feel cheap or that we've been cheated. It feels very much not necessarily necessary. Yeah, real is a good word for it because it's not like necessary to lose everybody. I've only seen Atonement once, but the one time that I watched it, I remember at the very end of the movie it's revealed that like the little sister of Keira Knightley's character has written this book to give them a happy ending and they never get back together.
Spoilers for Atonement.
Yeah, right? They both die in the war. I remember feeling at the end of the movie that it was cheap that she was like, oh, I'm writing this story. It didn't actually happen.
This movie did a really great job of letting us get attached to these characters and then having to say goodbye to them because it was war.
Yeah.
And it was realistic.
Their deaths are not romanticized. War is not romanticized. It's a terrifying and terrible thing that they have to do.
So many movies and so many action movies fling people around and like there's stormtroopers blowing up everywhere and death is treated as this thing that happens to other people. But with this, it happened to everyone, and it happened to the people that you cared about. It's kind of messed up that the most diverse Star Wars film yet killed off all of those people by the end of the movie, but also, for the story that they told, it was the right ending.
Yeah, and it's only like problematic because there are not as many people of color in the previous Star Wars movies.
The way that Bodhi went out like broke my heart. Because, like, he just finished his job, somebody throws the bomb into the ship. We see him, like, look at it and register it for a second. Oh, I'm getting emotional thinking about it right now. I think the way that everybody went out was very respectful, and it was in a way that wasn't, like, cloying with sentimentality. It was everything that the characters deserved. It was devastating. Oh, yeah. I want to argue there were lots of people that were like, oh, well, they all had to die because we never see them in the original trilogy.
And I'm like, have to for them to stay alive.
I mean, like, it's not like the galaxy is huge and immense and like we weren't introduced to 3 planets we'd never heard of before in Rogue One.
Yeah. The rebellion is rather large. Like, they have their own base.
Yeah.
We know that they go on different missions. It's not just they take one mission a year. And
it's not a 20-person fan club.
Yeah.
I don't want this to be the most diverse Star Wars movie ever made because I want them to improve. If it's not going to bother me that they built a story deliberately where all of these men of color died, even if it was nobly and for a cause that they believed in, like, they need to work on that.
I think the fact that these Star Wars story movies are shying away from centering around the Skywalker family definitely leaves huge opportunity. Not that, like, The Force Awakens didn't, because it did, because we don't know who Rey's parents are, regardless of what anybody thinks. She's not a Kenobi. Moving on. These movies especially, because they're not centered around what has since, for 40 years been a white family in this galaxy.
There were some very, very relevant discussions of privilege. There was a scene where Diego Luna, like, very intensely tells Jyn, oh, well, now you're fighting because it's relevant to you.
Yeah, okay.
I haven't had that luxury. Both of those speeches come from men of color.
Yeah.
To her as a white woman. And I don't think that's an accident.
No, it's not even, like, portrayed as mansplaining. It's not them saying...
It's not that she doesn't understand. She's willfully ignorant.
Choosing not to be a part of it. Which is totally reflective. This is how we've gotten to the current political climate that we're in, is that white people have always chosen white people over everybody else.
Yeah. I really fell in love with this movie when I did not expect to really get anything out of it besides just
More stars, more wars.
More Star Wars. Yeah.
I don't want to say this is my favorite Star Wars movie, but it's definitely like up there, for sure.
Thank you all for watching.
If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up.
In the comments below, let us know what your reactions were or your favorite characters.
If you're not already subscribed to The Princess and the Scrivener, please do so down below, especially if you'd like to see more videos on Disney, intersectional feminism, pop culture critiques, and more, including our apparently annual Star Wars videos. We promise we're only going to give you like one 20-minute video a year. At least that's what I'm promising now. We'll see if we'll hold that, but probably will.
The Princess. We'll see you next week.